Professor Emeritus of Political Science Naseer Aruri, a Palestinian American who taught at the University of Massachusetts. As we speak, Yasser Arafat is in a coma, and it may be the end of the Arafat era. And I wonder, as a Palestinian American, if you could explain to our audience the importance of Yasser Arafat for the Palestinian movement and his place in history, perhaps.
Well, Yasser Arafat actually symbolizes Palestinian nationalism, and he's become really a symbol of the struggle of Palestinians for self-determination. I think that his legacy would probably be the reaffirmation of Palestinian rights, the incorporation of these rights into international law between the 1970s and 1980s. There were numerous resolutions that were adopted by the General Assembly, particularly affirming the right of Palestinians to statehood, to struggle for independence by all means necessary, including armed struggle. Actually, very few people know about this, but that was a UN resolution.
When was that?
I think it was in the 1970s, I believe, either 73 or 74, right around that area. So irrespective really of whether Palestinians approved of Arafat's policies or were ardent critics, I think there is a consensus that he was a historic leader, that he played an important role. I think that the Oslo process was problematic because he allowed himself to go into an open-ended agreement, an agreement to reach agreement. I mean, even the controversy over his burial seems to remind me of Oslo's transitional phase and final state phase. You know, it was divided into transitional period whereby a modality for self-governance will be worked out, and that took 10 years, and it never really came to the final status, so-called final status. And there are reports about the Egyptians trying to negotiate a similar agreement about his death. I mean, to bury him transitionally in Egypt and then to see if they can resolve that. I found that rather obscene, and particularly the Egyptians doing it, given the role that Egypt has played in the past in Oslo and post-Oslo. But as I said before, I think that Arafat's legacy, his most important legacy, I think, would really be the unification of the Palestinians within the framework of the PLO, because no matter what one says about the PA and the PLO, there is really a framework there, and that is the only thing that unifies the three segments of the Palestinian people: those who live under occupation in the West Bank and Gaza, those who are second and third class citizens in Israel proper, about 1 and something million, and then you have the more than 5 million refugees in the diaspora. The only framework that within which these three people can speak and are represented really is the PLO. And Arafat, throughout most of his adult life, presided over the PLO. So in the minds of many, I think that his role as PLO chief exceeds in importance his other hats that he wears, like president of the Palestine Authority. I mean, the Palestine Authority represents 3.5 million people in the West Bank and Gaza, and that is not even, that is just under, half of the entire Palestinian population.
Some Palestinians have been very critical of him in recent years for neglecting refugee rights, the right of return.
Well, there's a controversy about that. I think if you're listening to many Palestinians, those of them who are devoted to the right of return, and that includes an incredibly significant sector, blame Arafat for having made concessions on the right of return. There's an article in the New York Times which bears his signature in the 1990s, in the late 1990s, in which he said that he understood Israel's demographic concerns, and it implies the article that he wrote, the op-ed or written for him, implies very strongly that there will be some crucial concessions. There is also something called the Abu Mazen-Balin agreement, which clearly renounces the right of return. And Abu Mazen is his second in command, and he's the one who is most likely to become the head of the PLO. That agreement clearly renounces the right of return. But if you are listening
now,
to
who comes next? Let's talk about the other Palestinian leaders, perhaps in the PA now, and then maybe some of the dissidents in some of the groups.
Well, the succession issue, I think, has been really of major concern to the American media, and of course, to Palestinians and to many people who are concerned about the future of the Middle East. The first thing I want to say in answering this question is that this is not going to be a conventional, traditional succession whereby a president dies and who's going to take his place. I think that there are rules there that are institutionalized. I mean, like the basic law, which is the equivalent of the constitution for the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza. Successor on transitional basis, the Speaker of the House, whom most Palestinians don't know.
Who is it?
Actually, I seem to have, unfortunately, I seem to have forgotten his name. I knew it this morning, but he's not really well known at all. But under the basic law, this man would take over transitionally for 60 days until elections are arranged. Actually, the Palestinians have been seeking elections, but Israel has refused to give permission for elections. So this would be the first step. But this is not going to be really a traditional succession because Arafat wore a number of hats. And there are really four significant roles that he performed. I'll go through them very quickly. I mean, he's the president of the Palestine Authority, and he's the chief of the PLO, and he's also president of what they call the State of Palestine that was declared in 1988 when the Palestine National Council decided to recognize Israel, and they declared a State of Palestine. So he has that role. And fourthly, he is also the head of the Central Committee of his main party within the Palestinian body politic known as Fatah. Apparently, what is likely to happen, at least in the short term, to possibly the medium term, is that, well, let's say short term. I think that Mahmoud Abbas Abu Mazen is the most likely candidate to take over the PLO role. With regard to the PA, I think that the administration of the affairs of the PLA, fiscal, administrative, etc., is likely to go to the present Prime Minister, who is Ahmed Qurayah. I believe that someone like Salim Zanoun, who heads the Palestine National Council, is probably destined to play some role, particularly with regard to the PLO more than the PA, because the Palestine National Council, unlike the so-called Legislative Council, presumably represents Palestinians in the diaspora and in the West Bank and Gaza, unlike the Legislative Council of the PA. So I think that's really what's likely to happen transitionally. But other things, I think, might intervene and play out. It is undoubtedly important to keep an eye on some ambitious young people, particularly those who are involved in the so-called security forces. There's nothing security about them, really, but that's what they call them. They were set up and organized and trained under Oslo. They were supposed to be the gendarme, really, for the Israeli occupation. But operating under the hat of the Palestine Authority. I mean, it is the strong police force as described in Oslo, so that, Oslo really basically reframed the occupation, put it under a different name. So there are, young, ambitious people there who seem to be acceptable to Israel, particularly, and to the United States. And I'm talking about Mohammed Dahlan in Gaza and Jibril Rajoub in the West Bank. I think that they are ambitious.
Now, none of the people you've mentioned are in Hamas. That's also another force.
Well, Hamas is another force. I think that they seem to be laying low. They seem to be taking a low profile in the interest of not provoking anything that's going to bring about chaos and disorder. I think the Palestinians have really displayed tremendous political maturity that was exhibited since Arafat's illness and since all these rumors and stories have been circulating, and the rush to find out what's going to happen. You could see it in the fact that some sort of decentralization is at work. And unlike the way Arafat used to make decisions, whereby he would summon various people representing different institutions, I think that we have seen meetings that were held under one function. In other words, a meeting that concerns the PLO, a meeting that concerned the PA, etc. So far, I think Hamas has really taken a low profile. And as I said, the last thing the Palestinians want to do is to give Israel any excuse or any pretext to foment disorder, in which case Israel would immediately jump and say that, you see, we told you the Palestinians can't govern themselves. Of course, in such a situation, any prospects of getting the frozen so-called peace process into real negotiations would be hindered a great deal. Not that there are really serious signs that the parties are about to be re-invited to the table.
One last area, Uri Avneri and others have been warning that if the Gaza disengagement, the plan of Prime Minister Sharon is put in, there might be attempts on Sharon's life and a civil war among Israeli Jews. If this becomes a serious threat, is there any possibility of perhaps some kind of alliance between democratic Israeli forces and Palestinians?
Well, I'm not really so sure. Uri Avneri is a veteran of these affairs. He has had a long experience in being involved in Israeli politics, and more recently being an activist and a journalist and writing on Israeli politics, as well as what takes place in the occupied territories. So I would certainly respect his opinion. I would have to say that the future really could be much brighter if we see cooperation between the peace camp in Israel and the Palestinians. I don't want to say the peace camp in Palestine, because the mainstream, the establishment in Palestine, is basically a peace camp that has been begging for a solution based on the two-state idea. What I'm concerned about really is the definition of the peace group in Israel. We know that the left wing of labor and Meretz were the architects of Oslo, and I think that when they somehow persuaded Arafat to come to Oslo and do things that the Palestinians did not really expect, that they had assumed, or at least some of their real pundits assumed, that Arafat was going to relinquish everything. But there are red lines that they did not really observe or seem to comprehend. I think we have to really pay special attention to this, because if the peace camp means these people who put Oslo together, then I'm not really very hopeful about that. It would have to be a different sort of peace group that recognizes that genuine coexistence means that we have to really redefine that Zionist strategic position that the area between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea would accommodate only a single sovereignty, and that's Israel. I believe the architects of Oslo had that assumption, and they still do. And that's why when Arafat did not really sign on the dotted line, I mean, all the way as they wanted him to, they just went berserk, and the whole idea, the whole myth of a generous offer and the culpability of Arafat was promoted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.